What's up, everybody? It's Jared with Capture the Magic, and in today's video, we're going to talk about how Disney has finally finalized the entire purchase of Hulu, which they had to buy the remaining 1/3 of that from Comcast, and there was some back and forth about how much that was worth, and they finally figured that all out and talk about it on here and what this could mean for Disney, how much they ended up paying for Fox deal overall is only climbing here. So we're going to talk about all of this and how this could affect them going forward. So article here is from Los Angeles Times, says Disney finally owns all of Hulu, ending long tug of war with Comcast. Walt Disney Company has agreed to pay Comcast an additional $438 million to finalize the Mouse House purchase of streaming service Hulu. Disney in December 2023 initially paid Comcast $8.6 billion for NBC Universal's 1/3 stake in the streaming service. So the way this set up was Hulu was kind of a joint venture. You had Comcast involved, you had 20th Century Fox involved, and then when Disney bought 20th Century Fox, that included their stake in Hulu, and then you still had the remaining with Comcast. So they had it in the contract that after, I forget the amount of time, but Disney either could or they were obligated to buy the remaining 1/3 from Comcast, and that was where the stipulation was coming from, because Comcast was saying it was worth more than what Disney was saying, and alluding to Disney not providing content on there like they were supposed to, and that was kind of the back and forth there. It went to arbitration, and that's where the $438 million more came from. The final payment announced Monday brings the total amount to Burbank entertainment giant will ultimately pay Comcast for its stake is $9.2 billion.
Whoa, this is getting kind of pricey.
This week's agreement came after an extended appraisal process as the two companies struggled over Hulu's actual value. The platform that is home to The Handmaid's Tale and Only Murders in the Building appears to be worth about $27.5 billion. The resolution also represents a major step in Disney's years-long pivot to streaming. We are pleased this is finally resolved, Disney Chief Executive Officer Bob Iger said in a statement acknowledging Disney's productive partnership with the Philadelphia-based company. Completing the Hulu acquisition paves the way for a deeper and more seamless integration of Hulu's general entertainment content with Disney Plus and soon with ESPN's direct-to-consumer product, providing an unrivaled value proposition for consumers, Iger said. The two companies have had tense relations since Comcast launched a failed hostile takeover of Disney in 2004. Tensions also flared 7 years ago after Comcast jumped into Disney's bidding process for Rupert Murdoch's entertainment assets, substantially driving up the price for Disney. That is a funny thing, and I've said for a long time, it's not only the theme park side that they're competitors. They're not necessarily the most friendly, given that, yeah, they were negotiating, Disney and Fox were negotiating for that. I can't remember the price of it was, but Comcast stepped in, I think offered like $50 billion. I don't think they had any intention of actually buying it, but then that forced Disney to come back and offer $71 billion to buy the rest of it. So they made Disney pay an additional $21 billion to get Fox, which I'm sure that Disney and Iger were not happy about. But there's just one example of kind of the back and forth there. Disney prevailed. It gained the majority stake in Hulu as part of its $71 billion acquisition of much of Murdoch's company in 2019, which means that Disney now has essentially paid basically $80 billion for 20th Century Fox, which I would argue they will never make the money back on that just from that venture alone. Like, they've gotten some movie rights when it comes to Marvel and things, but overall, I don't know why they bought it. I don't know what it really did for them. I think most of it was for content on streaming, and streaming has very much been a money pit for most places outside of Netflix and really upended all these studios' revenue streams. And I just, I think if anybody would say you bought $80 billion for Fox and look at what Disney's done with it, they've had some stuff that have been success, obviously, from that, but nothing I don't think is going to come close, at least in the next decade, that's going to make up paying $80 billion for all of this. That spring, Disney and Comcast negotiated a pact that outlined the governance of the service while it was jointly owned by the two companies and also provided a blueprint to dissolve their partnership. At the time, they agreed that Hulu would be valued at no less than $27.5 billion, making Comcast's stake worth at least $8.6 billion. Comcast's divestiture process began 2 years ago when Chief Executive Brian Roberts signaled that his company wanted out. The parties then entered into an appraisal process to find the value for Hulu. Disney noted the $438.7 million payment was substantially less than what Comcast had wanted. I mean, yeah, Comcast was wanting $19 billion is what they were saying that their stake was worth. I think. It says Hulu was launched as an NBC, Universal, and Fox joint venture in 2008. Disney joined the following year as an equity owner. Hulu was a great start for us in streaming that generated nearly $10 billion in proceeds for Comcast and created an important audience for NBC Universal's world-class content. Comcast said in a statement Monday, "We wish Disney well with Hulu and appreciate the cooperative way our teams manage the partnership." So ultimately, Disney completely owns Hulu now, having paid the rest of Comcast. And the joke amongst team members of Universal is Epic Universe is the park that Bob Iger built because of that price tag of paying, $9 billion for whatever, with Epic Universe costing about $7 billion. So I think I don't think that went directly to Epic Universe, but you can put two and two together. It would have paid for that venture alone. When it comes to Disney and Hulu is has been a very successful streamer. You look at Hulu and Netflix; those are the most established ones out there. Disney has, they're still haven't been profitable overall from Disney Plus. They had a ton of upfront costs with that. I think I read somewhere where there's still like $12 billion in the hole from it, something like that. As a whole, when it comes to Disney Plus, they still have not been profitable when you talk about the overall picture. And not only that, but the sheer cost of the content that has gone on to these streaming services. You have seen some of these budgets just absolute insanity. I mean, the Acolyte was north of $300 million. Again, Andor for the 2 seasons were $600 million. I mean, these are full-length movie budgets that are being done for these shows. And movies, those budgets, if they're good enough movies, can make their money back at the box office. But now they're putting them just on streaming, and they're not getting the return that they wanted, which is one reason why Disney has taken a lot of the stuff that was going to be for streaming and give it a theatrical release. I think the biggest one being Moana 2, as that was a Disney Plus show they converted into a movie that ended up making $1 billion. So I think they're seeing that it makes a lot more sense to make things for the theaters. You can make your money there, even if it's not as much as they maybe wanted, but at least that is money coming in, and then it goes on the streaming service. But Disney's not the only one. The extreme cost of the production cost of this content it's kind of gotten out of control, how much it's costing to do all these things. They all kind of have this issue. I mean, the new Harry Potter show that HBO is doing, that is rumored to be into I think I read $7 to $8 billion for all the seasons they would do there, which is insane cost for that. I would argue there's no way you would make your money back on that. I just don't know. I mean, it's hard to know, when you're talking about streaming, like how many people sign up for something, how long do they stay? Like, it's a much more complicated way in which to run entertainment than it is to just release movies, have your theatrical run, like make them that way. So it's all gotten a lot more complicated and convoluted when it comes to streaming and all these major studios and how they're making content, the budgets for them, and really how they monetize it. Which is kind of funny because streaming is just basically turning into what cable was, adding ads in there, all the bundles that are involved. I think you're going to see a lot of these streamers, merge into each other. You're already seeing that with Hulu and Disney Plus. You're going to see that, I think, with other companies. So it's a kind of mirroring what happened with cable. And as cable is diminishing, streaming has gone up. But now there's so many streamers. I think they're all realizing that there's just not an endless amount of customers out there that are willing to pay for 9 different streaming services when it used to kind of be they all just went to Netflix and just kind of used that as the central hub. That's one reason why Netflix grew so much, was it kind of became this central hub that people, obviously they were paid to put their movies and shows onto Netflix, which was easy money. They just got basically licensing money. They say, here's $20 million, put your content on here. You don't have to worry about anything infrastructure-wise, and they were all making money. And then they got real greedy because they saw the money that Netflix was making, decided to make their own streamers. But the problem with that is you have a lot of cost involved with that, not only upkeeping the service, advertising it, licensing that you're no longer getting from that. And I think this is the issue that Disney and other ones have run into, is licensing money is not a bad gig. It's pretty easy money. And you've even heard Disney and Iger even say they want to do more licensing deals overall for that reason. But streaming-wise has kind of cut that off, as well as the aftermarket runs of movies. I mean, typically movies would have their theatrical run, then you would have their, you could DVD, Blu-ray sales, rentals, things like that, and then they would end up on Netflix, where you would make money on the, video DVD sales, you'd make money on the licensing deal to Netflix, and now it's just going to Disney Plus when you're talking about Disney, and they're not driving, those new releases aren't driving a huge amount of people to Disney Plus to make it the behemoth that they thought it was or hoped it was going to be. And I think this is the problem that Disney and many other studios are running into, is that it wasn't such a bad deal having licensing deals. Universal kind of still does licensing deals overseas more. Disney, I don't think does. I think Disney puts everything on Disney Plus. And, now that you don't have Blu-ray sales out there, there's just not as much of longevity of some of these movies and shows really making the money they used to. And I think this is one of the challenges out there when it comes to streaming on all these streaming services. And also, when you look at Disney Plus, the number one show on that streaming service is Bluey, which is obviously a children's show that Disney does not own. So the number one show on Disney Plus isn't even one of their own shows. Many of their shows have struggled to even get the top 10 on the Nielsen ratings. So there's been a lot of question marks around Disney Plus. But then you look at Hulu. Hulu's been much more stable, so they've folded that into the mix. And ever since they've done that, they've had much better streaming numbers come out, because I think they're combining Hulu with Disney Plus on that. But either way, Disney ultimately, with the Fox deal, ends up paying very close to paying $100 billion for all this, about $80 billion now. And it's, it goes into what Iger's done. Iger, during his tenure, has bought things, Marvel, Star Wars. For Disney Plus, they had to buy the Major League Baseball company that did their streaming. They purchased them, like the streaming technology for that. So there's been lots of purchases by Iger in his tenure. And I would say a lot of them are the result. I don't think Star Wars is in a better place. I don't think Marvel now is in a better place. For a little bit there, that was a great one, but Marvel's had diminishing returns. And you talk about the whole Fox deal. I just don't understand the economics of that, how that was ever going to make sense, that you pay $70 to $80 billion for this, how that would eventually, make you more money. I've always had questions about that. Even out of that deal, if you had an in-game type run of the Marvel MCU where you had all these great movies that built up into the culmination of like a cultural event, I don't even think those, even if they were that successful, would be enough to make up for paying $80 billion for this. So it's a lot of question marks on if that was worth it or not. But obviously Comcast is tied into this, and then the whole back and forth between Comcast and Disney is kind of an interesting one over the years. And I don't think Bob Iger and Brian Roberts are on each other's Christmas card list by any means, but Disney now fully owns Hulu as they continue to implement more things into Disney Plus. I think they're going to turn it into their just sort of online hub. You've seen ESPN be on there. You've even seen ABC and ABC News be on Disney Plus. So I think it's becoming kind of the center point of doing everything there as cable diminishes and as linear television diminishes, also kind of putting it in there. But as of now, the deal is done, and Disney only had to pay a little bit more. I say a little bit, $430 million to Comcast for the rest of Hulu, and looks like that is done now. So we'll have to wait and see if that changes anything on Disney Plus and what else they do with Hulu. But as of now, that is all I've got here. So that's going to be it, though, for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we go to coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments what you think about all this. And until next time, we will see you later.